Back in early 2022, just after New Year's, my family was visiting a family who were friends of ours. I had heard some bad things about the city they lived in, but I never thought much of stuff like that, because I'd never experienced anything dangerous, and their street was safe. I get along well with the eldest son of the family. We've known each other since we were little and we're having fun. I was a bit more degenerate and experimental back then, and young, so he talked me into sucking deodorant. It's stupid and dangerous, and the high lasts only a few seconds. For those unfamiliar, you put some fabric over a deodorant spray as a filter, and suck the gas through it. I still have the sensation burnt into my memory. Wet fabric, tasting slightly like soap and chemicals and stinging my tongue and lips a bit. We'd gone through a can or two and wanted to try some more and get some snacks, but it was late, so we had to go to a petrol station. We went outside and told our parents we were going for a walk. I put on my new winter coat, which was fluffy and fully reflective. The outside was purely a bright reflective material, the exact opposite of camouflage. We got to the petrol station all right, and both noticed this weird red car outside the petrol station as we entered, but I personally didn't think that much of it. I've always found it's best not to show any fear, and act completely unbothered, to keep weird people from noticing you. It's a mental game. We went in, and they didn't have any deodorant, which we suspected before going, but it was our only option, and we thought it'd be fun to go for a walk anyways. My friend still wanted something to eat, so he got some warm food. But before that, he pointed out that the car we saw was now right outside the entrance exit of the petrol station kiosk, and that there were multiple sketchy guys sitting in it. I started getting anxious now and mentally prepared myself, but kept my composure. They were there for way too long to be doing anything normal. They were waiting for us. We got ready to leave. We only had one option: walk past them, fast. We didn't know if they noticed us looking at them, but they likely did. We exited and my friend walked much faster than me and passed them, but as I passed them they told me that there was a guy in the car who knew my friend and he wanted to say hi. I played along and said, "Hey, he says he knows you." A part of me actually bought into it, to be honest. Maybe the part of me that was trying to cope with the situation. But I find that playing along and acting normally when people try tricking you exposes their deception. For example, my friend reacted perfectly. He acknowledged what I said, turned around slightly while walking, waved to the car while saying hi and continued walking, which made it hard for them to have any excuse to not let us keep walking. There's no need to get right close to them just to say hi. As soon as they realized we weren't going to walk up to their car, they started it and left. They must have seen us coming because they drove out of the petrol station, turned left, and then drove down the road we came from and blocked the entrance to the path we came from. This put a chill down my spine as it confirmed the only reason they were there was for us. But also, that they weren't done. They lingered for a bit, but maybe they realized we wouldn't be stupid enough to walk into their trap, so they slowly drove a bit further down the road. But we weren't stupid enough to fall for that trap either. I did slightly hope they had given up and realized their plan was stupid because I thought that if I were a criminal, I wouldn't do things how they did. But I didn't even really know what their intentions were. Were they going to rob us from in their car? That seemed like a self-limiting method to me, but I didn't dare think they'd kidnap us or anything like that and didn't see why they'd want to target us for both of those things. Murder for fun? I don't know. My friend told me that as soon as they were out of sight we would run to the left along some buildings. It's his town and he knows his way around. It's hard to describe the layout, but the road that leads to the path we came from swings to the left, behind some buildings, and we were on the opposite side of those buildings and could use them as cover. At this point, I thought, shit, my coat is the most reflective piece of clothing in the world, and it's not exactly the best thing in this situation to say the least. So I took it off and tied the sleeves around my waist, with the inside facing out, which is black, to be more stealthy. But parts of the outside of the coat were still visible. The adrenaline kicked in and we ran for a while along those houses. You could say that we did get high, just not off of deodorant. It was absolutely nerve-wracking not knowing what they wanted or where they were. I imagined them being around any and every corner. Eventually we reached the end of the row of houses, which wasn't too far but felt like miles. There were two main roads that crossed here, and I felt fairly confident that the men didn't know where we were. Who knows how many were in that car. My friend pointed to a little path which ran along the right side of the road, which was to our right. I could taste safety again. The path was a lot lower than the road, and there was a slope connecting the side of the road to the side of the path with some bushes on it. It felt safe. At the end of the path there was a tunnel, and that tunnel, though it was dirty and dark, seemed more appealing than it ever could otherwise at that moment. It represented safety. We started walking and talking more casually, but were still a little cautious. My friend told me that when we went through the tunnel, we'd come to his street, and then we'd just have to walk the distance back to his house. But as we were halfway along the path, we saw headlights approaching on the road which was to the left of and above us. Out of reflex, I crouched down and leant onto the steep slope, which had damp grass on it, and hid behind the bush, and my friend did the same. I honestly thought this was just a random car and that we were being overcautious. But I'm glad we did it because the car drove suspiciously slowly, and it felt like ages before it passed us. In hindsight, what other car would even be out there at that time of night? It ended up turning left down the road we came from. It was them, probably completing their circle and going back to the petrol station to find some new victims. Imagine what losers you have to be to spend your time waiting at a petrol station for possible victims. Whether they saw us or not, I don't know, but they had no chance of getting to us. We started sprinting again, towards the tunnel. It was a short journey through it, and we were finally on his street. Relief. Then we slowed down again and started walking. You'd think this was the end of it, and we did so too. But as we had gotten a bit down the street, which went down a big hill and led out of the town, we heard a loud bang, like a gunshot, and we started sprinting once again, another adrenaline high. It wasn't right near us, but it sounded like it came from the petrol station we had come from, or at least that direction, which wasn't that far away. I think anything could have made us run at that point though. Even the sound of a sweet old lady offering us cookies. That would have been a bit creepy in this context too though, Lowell. We reached his house, went up to his room and agreed not to tell anyone. We debated whether the bang we heard was a gunshot or not. It was near New Year, so it's not unlikely that it was a firework. But the weird thing was that we only heard that single bang the whole time. I'd never heard a gunshot before, so I didn't have any reference. But I still remember thinking it was a bit too loud for a firework. This remains the most dangerous experience I've ever had, which I feel quite privileged about because I wouldn't say it's the worst experience to have had of the sort, but it could have been a lot worse than it ended up being.